Right now, while you're watching this video, someone in some backyard is yanking a plant out of the ground and throwing it away. A plant that healers relied on for thousands of years, long before pharmacies existed. It's called the dandelion. And today I'm going to walk you through every single part of it. The root, the leaves, the flower, even the stem. Show you exactly what each one was used for. Take you through how different cultures around the world have used this same plant for centuries and explain why almost nobody remembers any of this anymore. By the end of this video, you're going to look at your lawn completely differently. The dandelion isn't native to most of the places where it grows today. It originally came from Europe and Asia, and botanists believe it's been growing wild for over 30 million years, long before humans existed to give it a name. It traveled around the world with settlers, not by accident but on purpose. People packed dandelion seeds when they moved, the same way they pack seeds for onions or carrots. It was considered a useful plant, not a weed. Its name even comes from the French phrase Dandelion, lion's tooth, because of the sharp, jagged edges of its leaves. The French weren't the only ones who named it after its appearance. In Italian, it's sometimes called piscialetto, which roughly translates to wet the bed, a reference to its traditional use as a diuretic. In German, one of its old folk names translates to milk flower because of the white sap inside the stem. Almost every culture that encountered this plant gave it a name tied directly to something it actually did, which tells you something about how differently people used to relate to the plants growing around them. For centuries, dandelion was grown in gardens deliberately right next to vegetables. Monastery gardens across medieval Europe cultivated it intentionally alongside herbs used for treating common ailments. Somewhere along the way, that changed, and that shift says a lot more about our idea of what a perfect lawn should look like than it does about the plant itself. Let's start underground because this is the part almost nobody thinks about. The root of the dandelion is long, thick, and surprisingly difficult to fully remove, which is exactly why so many people consider this plant such a nuisance. But that same root has a long history of practical use. Roasted and ground, dandelion root becomes a coffee substitute. No caffeine, but a similar deep, slightly bitter, earthy flavor. This wasn't a fringe practice. During periods of coffee shortage, like wartime rationing in parts of Europe, dandelion root coffee was common enough that people simply called it dandelion coffee. No explanation needed. In the American South, chicory root became the more famous coffee substitute, but dandelion root was used the exact same way in rural households that had both plants growing nearby. Traditional herbalists and folk medicine practitioners across multiple cultures also used the root as a mild digestive aid, often prepared as a tea or tincture. In traditional Chinese medicine, dandelion root has been used for centuries as part of broader herbal preparations. In parts of Eastern Europe, root tea was a common household remedy passed down from grandmother to mother to daughter, the same way you might pass down a recipe. I want to be clear here. This isn't a miracle cure, and I'm not a doctor. This is traditional, historical use, passed down through generations, not a medical recommendation. But it's knowledge that used to be common and has almost completely disappeared from everyday awareness. Now let's move above ground to the leaves, the ones spread all across your lawn right now. These leaves are edible. They're rich in vitamin A, vitamin K, and contain a notable amount of calcium and iron for a plant most people step over without a second thought. In several European countries, particularly France and Italy, young dandelion leaves are still sold at farmers markets today, mixed into salads the same way you'd use arugula or spinach. In parts of Italy, a dish called cicoria often includes wild dandelion greens sautéed with garlic and olive oil, a dish that's been on rural tables for generations. The taste is bitter, noticeably more bitter than most greens you're used to. That bitterness comes from compounds in the plant, and it mellows out significantly when the leaves are sautéed, or when they're mixed with something acidic like a lemon vinaigrette, or combined with milder greens to balance the flavor. The best time to harvest them is early spring, before the plant flowers. The leaves get more bitter as the season goes on. Some foragers specifically look for dandelion leaves growing in shaded areas, since shade tends to produce a milder, less bitter leaf than plants growing in full sun. Then there's the part everyone actually recognizes, that bright yellow flower scattered across your yard. That bright yellow flower. The flower has its own set of traditional uses too. It's been steeped into teas and in some folk traditions, fermented into a homemade wine. Dandelion wine has actually been a documented rural tradition in parts of the United States and the United Kingdom for well over a century. Entire community recipes were built around picking dandelion flowers on a specific day in spring, when they were considered at their peak for fermenting. In some traditions, the petals themselves were even used to add natural yellow color to homemade butter and cheese, long before synthetic food coloring existed. Here's something interesting. The flower is basically the only part of this plant nobody tries to rip out. It's the moment right after it blooms, when it turns into that white, fluffy seed head that suddenly makes it official. That's the point where people decide it's officially a weed and start pulling it. Before that, while it's just a bright yellow flower in the grass, most people barely notice it at all. Even the stem doesn't go to waste in traditional use. If you break it, you'll notice a milky white sap comes out immediately. In some folk remedies, this sap was dabbed directly onto minor skin irritations, like insect bites, similar to how plantain, another so-called weed, was traditionally used. A word of caution here, some people have mild skin sensitivity to this sap, so this isn't something to test on a whim, especially without doing your research first or checking with someone who actually knows what they're doing. So if this plant has this much documented traditional use across so many different cultures, why does almost everyone treat it like an enemy today? The answer has less to do with the plant and more to do with lawn culture. Dandelions grow fast, they spread aggressively through the wind-carried seeds, and they don't fit the image of a uniform, single-species green lawn that became a cultural status symbol, especially in the United States, starting in the mid-20th century. Lawn care companies built entire advertising campaigns around the idea that a lawn full of dandelions meant a homeowner wasn't taking care of their property, when for most of human history, the opposite was closer to true. That perfect lawn standard wasn't really about function, it was about appearance. And a plant that's genuinely useful, one that different cultures across 3 continents found their own independent uses for, got rebranded as a problem purely because it didn't match an aesthetic that didn't even exist 100 years ago. Here's the bigger point I want you to walk away with. The dandelion is just one example. Your yard is probably full of other plants that get pulled and thrown away without a second thought. Plants that have their own long histories of traditional use that most people have simply forgotten, the same way most people forgot about the dandelion. Before you reach for the next weed in your yard, it might be worth pausing for a second and actually looking it up first. So next time you see a dandelion pushing up through a crack in your driveway or scattered across your lawn, take a second look. It might be worth a lot more than it looks like at first glance. If you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing to the channel. Every week, there's another plant hiding in your backyard that you probably didn't know the full story of.